Okay, I know I said it before in my last video, but I'm going to say it again here today because it's still true. This, what you're watching here right now, it is not a Christmas video. Yeah, that's right, see? But again, shooting mid-December, and I had to talk about this because I have a very hot take, all right? I have seen West Side Story, the Spielberg remake, and I have an opinion about it that might be pretty unpopular. But before we get to that, welcome to Teacup for One. My name is Matt and I have 2 degrees. Okay friends, like I said, I have finally seen the remake of West Side Story and I'm worried I might have an unpopular opinion, but here it goes. I have nothing bad to say about it. In a lot of ways, I think it's a superior film to the original. I know, I'm sorry, I said it. And I mean, I might feel this way because it was one of the first times I've been in a movie theater in over 2 years, so that was a pretty emotional experience. Plus, I just love the material so much, and it's just so well made. And I am going to do a review for you today, except I have nothing constructive to say about it. Normally I do these review videos and I'm like, I like this and this, but there is this thing that could have been better or could have been improved, and I don't have that for this movie. And not to say that it's perfect, because nothing is ever perfect, and I plan on seeing this film at least 2, 3, like 17 more times. Probably not all 17 times in theaters, but I'm going to see it a bunch more times. So there's inevitably going to be criticisms that I'll have, I'm sure, in time. I just don't have them today. But I wanted to make this video because I'm still riding the high of how much I loved this film, and I wanted to talk about how much I loved this film. So yes, it is going to be a review. I'm going to talk as critically as I can about the things that I loved and why I loved them. But if you're watching this video to know whether or not I recommend seeing this movie, 100% see this movie, and see this movie in theaters. Okay, this movie is still going to be good when you can watch it through streaming or on a television screen, but so much of the majesty of this film is seeing it on a massive screen. The cinematography is incredible. I've seen, I would say, almost every movie musical, and the dance sequences in this were shot in ways that I've never seen before. Like, I'm not really a cinematographer, but I was watching it just thinking, like, what lens is this? Because they're capturing so much movement, so much stuff in such a small space. Like, the dance at the gym was everything I wanted it to be, and so much more. Not to mention the fact that you need to see it in a theater so you can have the full symphonic surround sound to do justice to the Leonard Bernstein score. It's just, it was everything that I wanted it to be. And so much more. Oh, okay, but without rambling non-specifically for too long, I'm going to get into some specifics. I've had a couple friends ask me over the past few days, how does this film compare to the original from the 60s? And I know I said that I think it's better, but that doesn't mean that it's taking away from how good the original film is. The best comparison that I've seen floating around online was someone said that this movie is like Heath Ledger's Joker compared to Jack Nicholson's Joker. Both performances, iconic, groundbreaking in their own ways, but they're just so vastly different that you really can't compare them. Of course, Heath Ledger's Joker and Steven Spielberg's West Side Story is a lot more gritty, visceral, realistic adjectives, whereas Jack Nicholson's Joker and the original West Side Story, they're more heightened. They have this almost form of magical realism to them. And I think both versions are iconic and beautiful in their own ways. But it was so refreshing, and I almost feel long overdue to see West Side Story through the viewpoint and the lens that Spielberg gave us. And what I think is so beautiful about the original West Side Story film, which is something that stood out to me when I was revisiting it earlier this week in preparation for the remake, is that it feels to me like a stage performance that's shot on location. And normally that's not great when it comes to movie musicals, but I think it works for West Side Story. Because the original West Side Story film was pretty much created by the people who created the stage show, specifically Jerome Robbins. So in the original film, we have Jerome Robbins' choreography perfectly preserved and just amplified tenfold because he was able to capture it through film. And I know he put those dancers through the ringer and their feet were bleeding and it was kind of problematic, but it gave us a beautiful piece of art, and it is preserving that genius's work like in perpetuity. forever. And I think that's what's so brilliant about the original West Side Story film. Because for those of us who weren't around to see it on Broadway back when it premiered, we have the movie. Whereas Spielberg gave us a West Side Story that's a lot more filmic. Just to throw a blanket term out there. And I don't want to ramble too much about what I mean when I say that it's a lot more filmic, but I think he uses the visual possibilities of film to complement the written material of West Side Story, both the score as well as the script. And there's a lot more subtlety, there's a lot more nuance. The characters come alive for me in ways that I had never seen before. And it just all comes together to create a West Side Story experience that I found so much more emotionally impactful than any other previous West Side that I'd either seen or been in. And absolutely one of the best things about this new film is Tony Kushner's screenplay. So Tony Kushner adapted West Side Story brilliantly. He added a lot of things, he shuffled songs around, he reworked entire characters, but it was all in service of the original story. Nothing distracted from the West Side that we all know and love, it just made it that much better. I love how he layered in this whole scene with Tony and Maria going on a date. First of all, it gave us kind of a broader perspective of New York City in the 50s, which I thought was genius. And he builds their relationship in a way where I am fully invested in them running away together and deciding that they want to be together after knowing each other for just a few days. And that is a huge accomplishment. Like I said in my Anita video a couple days ago, that's one of the things that I'm just not sold on with Romeo and Juliet, just how quick that relationship evolves. And that's also kind of been a thing with West Side Story. I've always felt like West Side Story did it a little bit better, but Tony Kushner, he just created circumstances for both of these characters where I was invested in believing that they had no other alternative than to run away together. Just a combination of Maria's family being, I believe, still in Puerto Rico, plus Bernardo, dying, alongside Tony having nothing to live for before meeting Maria. Just everything was so well orchestrated for me to love these characters and want them to be together. It was amazing. And he didn't just do that with Tony and Maria. What I think is so genius with Kushner's screenplay is that he fleshed out every single character. And he did something that's almost very Shakespearean, ironically, where he just gave us one or two details about every single person, but it was enough to give us a full idea of who they were and how they were being affected by everything that was going on. And he fully reimagined some of the characters in ways that made the story so much better. Valentina, I think, is the most obvious one since she's now the stand-in for Doc, but what he did with Anybody's I thought was genius. What he did with Chino worked so well, and the one that I need to give a major shout out to is Graziella. I never thought I would see a West Side Story where I cared about Graziella. It's not to say that I liked Graziella. In fact, if anything, this production kind of made Graziella even more of a brat, but this is the thing, it gave her a personality. Whereas usually, I think Graziella is just a name that's slapped onto an ensemble member who needs to be featured in the dance sequences a bit more because she's Riff's girlfriend. In this production, she plays a very important role. She's kind of the stand-in for Rosaline from Romeo and Juliet, and not to get into spoilers that much, but the role that she plays in Anita's attack scene was heartbreaking. And it was just, the shot of her at the window, it was so good. And now that I'm talking about the characters, I should probably talk about the cast. I mean, I don't have much to say aside from the fact that I think it was perfectly cast. Standouts for me were Rachel Zegler as Maria. She brought this naivety and this innocence to Maria alongside an edge. And I think that's something that's so important when you're playing the ingenue or the Juliet type role. You have to have all of those innocent qualities because yes, it is a young girl falling in love for the first time, but it has to be balanced by something. And I think Rachel just added, like I said, this edge to Maria that made the character so engaging. And I was just with her. From the first moment that she was on screen through to her last moment, she carried this movie and she carried it so well. No surprises, Ariana DeBose was amazing. There's just nothing like watching Ariana DeBose cry. She is such a good crier. And it's not just about the tears, but it's about all the emotion behind them. I think she's one of the most emotionally connected new actors that I've seen on screen in a long time. Just between this and her performance in The Prom, even some of the stuff that she did in Schmigadoon, just nominate her for the Oscar. Give her the Oscar already. I know everyone's going to want Rita Moreno to get the Oscar because she's Rita Moreno. Give Rita the nomination, but give Ariana the Oscar because she deserves it. David Alveraz and Mike Faist as Bernardo and Riff, again, absolutely perfect embodiments of these characters that I've known for so long, and they just reimagined them in a way that felt so right. Okay, I don't want to sound like a broken record. Just read the entire cast list and rest assured that I loved them. And it wasn't just how they embodied the characters, but also the relationships. This is one of the first times that I've truly seen every relationship in West Side Story thoroughly explored to its emotional capacity. And I do think so much of that is attributed to Spielberg and his direction. I mean, so many parts of West Side that I've been conditioned to kind of tune out of because they didn't interest me were my favorite parts of this film. What comes to mind is I Have a Love. I've always loved Boy Like That because it is intense as all whatever. But I Have a Love, I'm just so used to tuning out because, oh, it's a soprano singing about how she's in love, whatever. But the emotional gut punch of I Have a Love in this film, it was unparalleled, and it was because of that relationship between Maria and Anita. Because the way Spielberg shot it, the way he directed it, I don't know, like it was just as much about Anita listening as it was about Maria singing. And that's just a perspective that I personally have never seen with West Side Story before. And I think that speaks to one of this film's biggest strengths as an adaptation of something that we're all already familiar with. Spielberg did such a brilliant job of staging and reimagining the musical numbers. Because going back and rewatching the original 1961, I think it was, West Side Story, a lot of the numbers are just park and barks. Like Maria is just Tony walking through the streets, singing Maria, then they like Vaseline the sides, so it's all blurry, but then there's Tony. Same with Tonight. It's just Tony and Maria spooning in the balcony, singing. Whereas Spielberg filled every moment of every song with something that was character-driven, something that was moving the plot forward, and just something that was captivating to look at. So Tonight, in the remake, is still sung on the fire escape, but the entire song is just this visual dance of Tony and Maria being separated by the fire escape in some capacity. And then when the two of them do finally come face to face at the end, it is so much more impactful because we've watched this whole game of them trying to overcome obstacles to be together, which is visually foreshadowing the entire film. And it's just something that's that simple, but that effective. It was similar in Maria. This was the only time I've enjoyed watching somebody sing Maria because Spielberg fleshed it out. And what I loved, which was almost kind of meta, is that he acknowledged that there was a guy singing in the streets, and it was funny, but in a way that worked, not in a way that took away from the musical number. Another moment from Spielberg's film that I loved that's never worked for me in previous West Sides is when Tony and Maria meet. So of course, it's one of the most famous parts of the show. They meet while at the dance at the gym. The world fades away, like in the original, literally everything fades away. Then it's just the two of them dancing in this void, doing this nice little snap snap dance. And they still did the snap snap dance in this film. But what I thought was genius is that Spielberg moved them just behind the bleachers. So they were still in an isolated space and they still had privacy, but it was still grounded in the reality of where they were. And even the choreography, it was so much more character driven than anything I've seen before. Because previously, when Tony and Maria meet, it's like they lock eyes and then there's just this telepathy where they do the same dance and they're like dancing a dance that they already know. There was just this beautiful nonverbal communication in the choreo between Tony and Maria. You know, like Maria started, arms outstretched, and then it kind of became a follow along with me type situation. I can't describe it. You need to see it. You need to see it. That's my whole point with this whole review. You need to see this new West Side Story. All I can say is that if you like West Side Story, and if you like movie musicals, and if you like Spielberg, and if you like remakes, you will like Spielberg's remake of West Side Story, the movie musical. Anyway, friends, this concludes yet another episode of Teacup for One. So let me know in the comment section down below, have you seen the new West Side Story film yet? And what did you think? And if you want to be the first to know when I release more videos about film, musicals, Disney, Shakespeare, cats, Funko Pops sometimes, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed already. If you haven't subscribed already, it is so easy. All you have to do is click on my face. Thanks for joining me again today, everyone. My name is Matt, and I have 2 degrees, and that's the Teacup for One. Go away.